instead of trying to control her and say, you should be like this and this and this, which is suppressing that, I just let her feminine energy be like an ocean, which is it's never ending. It's abundance. It's all over the place. And as my role as the man is to build the dams and to build the boats and to guide that energy and to help direct it, but I am not controlling it. The moment you try to control it, the relationship goes off and you lose polarity. And I've had that experience before. And then you lose intimacy and then you lose trust, right? And that's the whole cycle goes down. So if you're trying to control this person, especially if you're a man listening right now, or you're masculine based, don't control, let go. You have to trust and just guide her, help her make the right decisions, but let her make the decisions. And that right there, Erica, and I'm so grateful I learned that because I would have never sustained her, is been the game changer for me. And I'm just, always a student though, always a student. And you women, I mean, there is just a never ending amount of knowledge and things that we could learn about. So always a student.
Well, relationships teach us the most by far. Welcome my guest, Jake Havron. Jake went from graduating with his nursing degree to then shifting into empowering people to create their strategic lives through result-driven coaching and speaking. Jake has always had a heart for serving humanity. He has been consulting solopreneurs just starting their journey to real estate teams doing $1.6 billion annually in production in various industries and leaders in between. Jake guides them with strategic ways to becoming more influential with those around them, learning how to release bottlenecks in their life and how to get more resourceful with their unique abilities. You're providing just so much value, so I'm just going to take more. So
yes, please, I love it.
One thing I really want to touch on, because I haven't really shared this, and I think you, Jake and Emily, your significant other, are a power couple. As I've stated, like I love Emily. I love everything she shares, and she is a powerhouse. She is a confident woman, as you are a confident man. And you two together obviously are building your own empires individually and together. So what I wanted to ask you is, I know it's challenging men, alpha males, to have a female beside them that is, I'm not going to say that Emily's surpassing you, because that's not what I'm trying to state. But let's say you're
she's definitely surpassing me.
She's killing it. I know, but you're doing phenomenal too. So let's not downplay that. But if somebody listening has a partner that is building their empire and you're trying to build yours, how do you put your ego aside and be able to support them in their journey just as much as you want to cheer yourself on, So how do you, kind of put your ego aside and support your partner? What would you suggest to others?
Well, if my ego was in the way, we wouldn't even be together. And it was because the reason we met and the reason we clicked and the reason it was just, it's a divine way that we met, and God had his beautiful way of doing that. But the reason why we were able to work together is because a few months before, I finally understood to the core, because I went to a date with Destiny, which I know you want to go to, to the core of what masculine and feminine energy is like, and what is the outcomes, what does that embody, what does that look like in real world application, and what do I need to be, the difference between mature versus immature. And before I was, a lot immature, just as we all are if we're still young and in our infancy stage. But like, I wanted the significance, the ego. I wanted to be something, just like how I shared. I was that 7th grader that was overweight, and when I got fit and I got significance through that drove me to find more and more significance, because I just wanted to fill this void of being someone, because I wasn't really. But when I understood what a mature masculine energy is, and then I met this woman that was a powerhouse with masculine energy as well, because that's what building empires are, and power and growth. But she's to their core very, very feminine and loving, and it's there. And then she has this balance. I realized that I had to step up in that mature masculine. And what I describe that as, and I learned this from David Data, but I've learned from Dr. John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus. I've learned from Alison Armstrong, who Tony Robbins teaches a lot of her content on. She has a lot of books, incredible woman, is that the mature masculine energy is like an unshakable pillar. And so this is my visualization here. And if you're a woman listening to this, you're probably gonna be like, "Oh, I'm starting to see, yeah." Or maybe my spouse, my husband's like that, or maybe I want that, right? But it's an unshakable pillar because the top of the pillar is tied to their purpose, right? The mature masculine energy to its core is tied to its purpose, and it knows what it's going to do. And purpose is not business. Purpose is like just this God willing call of just serving, of ultimately like helping and giving back to humanity, in the sense that it's so powerful that it's unshakable. And so when I saw her, who was building empires and coming in, but she really to her core wants to be, feminine, because that's what her core is, and everyone has different core energies, is the only way to really match where she was to stay stable in that energy and have her be able to feel that, so her natural masculine energy can go down, and she could trust that if she's going to lean on this pillar or test it and see if it's going to fall, it's not going to fall. And I've been living by that. And by no means am I perfect, in the sense I've fell a couple times, there's been struggle, but what I've found is that if I just let her become more, to feel that I'm there as the mature masculine, I'm taking care of her, I'm supporting, I'm being solid, I'm not judging, I'm not quick to anger, right? And mature masculine is quick to anger, and when their ego gets hit, and I've had situations where that did happen, but I've really healed that quick. That allowed for her to grow more as this leader you see her today, compared to even 2.5 years ago when we met. And I grew massively from this, is because my ultimate goal was to just say, when she tests me, when she gives me problems, when she tries to run away, when she tries to, have all these little things, which the feminine energy to its core is like that. It wants to see, is this going to fall over? I was like, Jake, don't let this shake you. Like, I don't see a plan B with us. Like, we're going all the way to the top together. Like, yes, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good right away, but don't move. And like I said before, I've fallen over before, and she then, got a little hardened up on that, but I had to come back in and say, hey, you could trust me this time. And then she would test me and I wouldn't fall. And that's when the feminine energy can now be able to be part of that entire process. And the one thing I just want to share with this as well, if you're a man listening to this was the biggest flaw that I tried to do, and the biggest problem that I had to fix. Also learned this from David Data, is us men, as a mature or masculine energy in general, we try to control things. We get from point A to point B, right? We make decisions and go, right? Women or feminine energy is very flowing. It's like the ocean. And I'm a very visual guy, as you can probably tell. So I describe things in images, and I'm sure a lot of your people do, but hopefully that sinks in deeper. What I was trying to do at one point is I was trying to have her be like, just tell me what you want, or get this done, and basically be like a masculine person. Like, get from point A to point B. You told me this yesterday, but now you're telling me this. Like I would get a little angered about that. What I realized is the true feminine energy makes decisions on the moment, right? So what our goal as a man, this is where I'm just trying to really bring this back home to what you're saying here, is instead of trying to control who she is, which is why we're still together, and that's going to only suppress her feminine energy, which is what I'm attracted to, and I love it, and that's what brings that polarity. And she's even more of a powerful woman in the sense when she's truly in her feminine, because there's just so much uniqueness to it. Instead of trying to control her and say, you should be like this and this and this, which is suppressing that, I just let her feminine energy be like an ocean, which is it's never ending. It's abundant. It's all over the place. And as my role as the man is to build the dams and to build the boats and to guide that energy and to help direct it, but I am not controlling it. The moment you try to control it, the relationship goes off and you lose polarity. And I've had that experience before. And then you lose intimacy, and then you lose trust, right? And that's the whole cycle goes down. So if you're trying to control this person, especially if you're a man listening right now, or you're masculine based, don't control, let go. You have to trust. and just guide her, help her make the right decisions, but let her make the decisions. And that right there, Erica, and I'm so grateful I learned that because I would have never sustained her,
Yeah.
is been the game changer for me. And I'm just, always a student though, always a student. And you women, I mean, there's just a never ending amount of knowledge and things that we could learn about. So always a student.
Well, relationships teach us the most by far. I mean, so, and actually, funny enough, you mentioned some of the things that was in a previous episode I had by Keith Yackey. He talks about this polarity and that men need to be like that stable pillar. You spoke exactly the same words. And that's so true that women look for safety. They need that to feel secure, because then they're able to relax more in that feminine, the polarity and the feminine masculine energy. Even though we have both, it's very important in a relationship to be able to have the opposite of your partner. And I love that you touch on this, because I think it's critical. I think trust is a huge factor in a relationship. And that's why also my boyfriend and I, my significant other, we have such a thriving relationship because there's so much trust and respect, and also support of one another in our individual journeys as much as building it together. So it's beautiful to see that unfold, but also having a partner that's willing to go to the depths. Like when there's struggles, that partner that's willing to do the hard stuff, like to have those hard conversations that feels uncomfortable. Anyways, we could go into a whole thing about relationships. That's, I mean, that's a whole subject in itself, but I think it's really important that we touch on this because of the type of partnership you have and the relationship you have, and also your personal development and also your business. So I would love to hear, what are some ways you support your partner in her, her building her own throne for herself?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm so grateful I could support her in so many ways, because for her, for so long, she was ultimately always the decision maker, right? And that's what made her like so successful. And also, we know that like entrepreneurship is a masculine thing in the sense of building and creating and being stern and making decisions. That's just naturally masculine. So she really got in that sense. So one of the ways that I was able to support her and why we connected also so well on the intimate level, but also even just like a partnership, was I was able to start helping her make decisions. She would feel that trust and see that, hey, this guy Jake knows what he's talking about, right? I constantly prove that. But now she comes to me and, says, hey, what do you think about this post? What do you think about this business idea? I just got off this call and I'd love to have your thoughts on this. And I had to, I'm just going to be completely real, like right away, like, amazing, right? Like, I want to help you in every single way, right? And over time, when we get the law of familiarity, we've been together for 2.5 years, and this happens for every single relationship. It's just the fact of how quick can you get off of it, or how can you get off the plateau, is eventually then, sometimes it feels like a nuisance, or it feels like a problem. Like, you see your spouse or your significant other every day, you get familiar, it's just not the same. That's why you got to have variety in there. But I had to constantly remind myself and reintegrate. That's why I learned these things. And I've learned from these masters and these mentors is, hey, you know what? It may not be the most convenient thing, but this means the world to her, right? When she asked me for the help, and if I'm in a complete, busy, I say, hey, babe, I would love to help you here. Just let me finish this, give me 10 minutes, or, at 5 p.m. actually, that I'll have more brain space. Let's talk about that, right? You don't have to always just, submit into the sense of stop everything you're doing. But I realized that was one big thing that I could help support her, is just bringing my masculine intentions, which then also allows her to receive that masculine energy. So now she doesn't have to bring her own masculine energy, which makes her more feminine. So that helps with that balance. But as a man, I had to personally remind myself, like, Jake, this is why you're here. You're here to support her. You're here to love her, to guide her, and to keep her safe. Right. And that's the big support part. But yeah, always supporting her, always, every time I see her on a podcast, I'm listening to her podcast as best as I can. When I see her posts, I'm commenting and engaging. It's not because I'm doing it for, vanity reasons. It's doing because I want to show her that even though after 2.5 years, I still love her and I still care about her. Cause I would have done that when we first met, but it's really easy to fall off that bandwagon. And that's when relationships go stale. So as our mentor, Tony Robbins says best, he says, if you're doing now what you did at the beginning of the relationship, there will never be an end of the relationship. And I try my
100%.
best to do that.
Beautiful. I love it. Oh my gosh. I would love to even dig deeper, but I'm going to honor your time because I know
We
we've
could go, we
spent
could go one more question deeper. I could go,
what,
I'm totally fine
well,
with that.
well, let me ask you. So as far as, because you both are into personal development, but there are people out there that are listening that possibly are on their personal development journey. They're listening to this podcast because that's their interest. But let's say they are in a partnership where their partner is not really in tune with that. They're more building their business, let's say, or they have other interests. It's just that's not their focus. What would you say to that partner that really wants to grow with? Because I personally think personal development is life. I believe you need to be growing or you're dying. I really firmly believe in that. So you have to be constantly evolving and improving yourself. You have to be intentional with it. So for somebody that has a partner that maybe is not that intentional in digging into it, what would you say? Like, how could they support or encourage their partner to join the pursuit?
I love it. Join the pursuit. I love that you asked this question because the reality of it is a lot of people go through this. And whenever you get on the personal development journey and you're doing it alone at first, there's a big separation that happens right away in the sense of maybe your partner and you guys were together, like side by side. And then you got on this personal development journey and you realize all these things you didn't know that you now know. And you're like, there's so much more opportunity. You start to go up this gradient while either your partner's staying the same or they're going the opposite way. And separation leads to a lack of intimacy, right? And it's not just separation physically, it's also separation emotionally, separation spiritually. So what starts to happen is that you are speaking this different language. You're on this different frequency. And if you don't realize that you're on this different frequency and you're now speaking, let's say, German and English, and only you're speaking German to your significant other that speaks English, you don't make sense. And that could be causing a lot of resentment and anger if you're not realizing why, or they're not understanding you. And so that's where all I can say is you just expose them. Don't force them, right? If you're listening to this podcast with Jake and Erica here, and you got a lot of nuggets that they would love to hear, don't force it upon them. Instead, just expose it. Just say, hey, oh my gosh, I was listening to this podcast here this morning. I know you're not really into podcasts or anything, right? This is called pre-objecting them. I know you're not really into podcasts, so you probably won't want to listen to this, but they were just talking about business. They were talking about like relationship stuff, like all these things that I know you like, and maybe give them some more details. And if you're open to it, I'd love to just send it over. Maybe find a time to listen to it tomorrow night after you're done with work, right? You're exposing that to them. And if that doesn't work, then expose them with something else. And you know what? Maybe this is not a thing that you have to do for the rest of your life, but if they are truly the one that you love and you do enjoy with them, that it is part of your goal to do that. And maybe for you listening right now on your personal development journey, if you're kind of new in this or even a couple of years, maybe you were exposed a lot and you didn't make a decision right away. Those podcasts, the Andy Frisella one and then my lead, this literally just came to my mind thinking about this because of the question you asked. I remember my buddy telling me about them months and months before I finally listened to them. Seriously, like I didn't listen to them right away. I remember when I was exposed in college to the power of now, I tried listening to it, but I wasn't on the frequency of personal development. It made no sense to me. I was like, this is kind of boring. Okay, I don't really get it. Now the power of now is like, makes so much sense. So I was exposed to multiple things, and I'm sure you were as well. So expose, don't force them. I also say, don't push them, pull them. If you have a pushing energy on, once again, trying to force things, you don't want to do that. Pull them into it. Allow them to come. Give them opportunities to make their decision to move forward. Don't make the decisions for them. And then lastly, I say this, and this is especially if you're talking to your kids that are 7 years and younger, but even if you have high schoolers, is to understand that they are sponges and not mops. That they're going to absorb what you give them, but they're not just going to, you don't want to lay it out there and have them try to mop it up, because the mops just move it aside, but the sponges actually absorb that info. How do you allow them to absorb it? By living it, right? One of the quickest ways that you'll move your significant other is if you learn these things and you're living it and they see the shift, right? And I've had people that say that, and you're probably thinking this right now, if you've seen this, but they say something's different about you. Like, what have you done? And then now it clicks for them. Oh, it's when you started listening to podcasts, or, oh, okay, wow, you're actually doing pretty good in this business you're starting to build. Like, let them see that by example so they could absorb it, and you're not just throwing it out them for them to just mop it to the side, right?
So good. So
That
good.
right there, yes.
Jake, I think that's so valuable what you said, and I remember actually being in this situation with my my man, because he was not as, seeking this personal development, because he's building his business and he's focusing on other things, other important things, right? And so I remember having that kind of like pushing energy. And finally, when I realized, like, okay, I can't be a coach to him. I can't be like this, like, oh, this is the thing you should be listening to. This is where you should spend your time. Like, it's so wrong to think that way. And once I was aware of that, I was able to shift that energy and instead, yes, be, living it and welcoming him to listen to things or whatever it may be. And it really did shift things. And he was the one that inspired me to actually start meditation, because he was doing it on his own and seeing the change, talking about his change. And I interview everybody, and the number one thing they all do is meditate, but it wasn't inspiring me as much as seeing the shift in him. So that was
Wow.
really interesting. So like you mentioned, it's like when somebody is living it, and obviously if you're living with your partner, you witness it in the everyday, it's going to make an impact. So I think it's really important, and to be aware of that energy you're putting out to your partner, because I love how you spoke about being that they're a sponge, not a mop. And
Yeah.
that's just so great. So super valuable. Everything you shared today, true wisdom. And my goodness, I mean, so much goodness. I don't even know what to name this episode, because there's so much goodness in this episode. So Jake, okay, let's just wrap this up. So most importantly, where can people find you, follow you, learn more about you, work with you, whatever it may be?
Yeah, so I'm on social media all over. My main one is Instagram. So, but it's at Jake Havron. So if you're on other ones though, it's Jake Havron as well. But yeah, connect with me on social media. That's how Erica and I connected, right? It's a great way to provide value to each other. And if you were listening to this episode and something did stick out, like, don't put it aside to just let that be potential knowledge. Like, one of the ways to solidify it, and I love really calling this action out of people because it makes a difference, is send me a message and send me a message saying what stood out. I'd love to personally meet you in that sense. And I respond to every message on that, but I also would love to share that with Erica. And, as a podcaster with Erica and what she's been doing this for years, by the way, Erica, like, this podcast became the way it was because of your quality of questions,
Thank you.
because of you actively listening and being able to extract and go deeper. And these questions aren't planned. Like, if you don't know that or not, like these are just natural, but because she's able to listen and be so active, Erica, like, we had this incredible experience. And I really hope that allowed for someone's life to be shifted today. So I just want to acknowledge you on that, but I know you also like hearing people's responses. So send me a message on Instagram. If you want more info about what I do with consulting or speaking, working with teams, all that, it's on my website, jakehavron.com.
Amazing. Thank you for that compliment
Yeah.
too. I deeply appreciate it. So, of course, to close off this podcast, I ask the last question to every single guest. So, if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you have learned through your journey, and that you feel anybody needs to hear right now, what would that piece of wisdom be?
Ooh, most powerful question of this entire podcast. The wisdom I would leave is, when you understand that no matter how big the scenario is, no matter how big the deal, no matter how big the relationship, any type of moment you're in, if you understand that everything comes down to a human to human interaction, and you understand how to optimize your influence and your ability to speak their language in all different ways, you're going to be able to move the success needle faster for everyone. And the people that are the most influential in this world, and understand this, are the ones that move fastest through this world. However, they also bring those with them quicker and move the world with them. So influence is one of those most powerful skills you could have, especially when you know how to influence people for the best of their values first and not your own. And that's what I will leave you with this wisdom, is be more influential.
Amazing. Mic drop. All right. So we did it. Oh my gosh. Jake, I just want to thank you so much for your time. You have spent a good amount of time with us, and I know it was a little choppy experience, and I just really thank you for so much value provided. I mean, honestly, and you are so well spoken. You are so beyond your years. And I recognize such greatness in you and such heart, humility, humbleness. You know, you are obviously willing on learning along the way and improving in every which way you can. And I really respect and appreciate that of you. And you're on quite the path. And I see absolute like stardom for you. It's going to be freaking amazing. So
I received
congrats on
that.
everything you are pursuing. And of course, any way I could support you, I'm here. It's amazing. Thank you for everything.
I received that. I thank you for that. And what we just did today is the way that you could support me, is allowing me to just share this wisdom, this truth to the listeners here, that I hope you don't just let this sit by. Apply this, know that anything's possible. And just like how I was a nurse 5 years ago and just wasn't on my right path, I'm doing things I couldn't even imagine because I applied these things that I've learned like today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jake, for your everything today.